In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read ancient tomes, the order of the Abercast. We are the brave and bold.
The Ages begins with the shocking story of Cain and Abel and the journey of violence and revenge spanning thousands of years, following Cain through his cursed life from an ancient invasion of malicious angels to the American Revolutionary War. A masterful, compelling journey through time, The Ages delves deep into arcane knowledge, myth, and legend. The art is stunning, and the story takes you on a journey where mortals, immortals, angels, and demons are all forced to deal with the folly that is God's creation. It's a beautifully dark and gritty ride through history. This 4-part story follows the astrological procession of the ages and how each 2,500-year age parallels major changes in the development of Earth's inhabitants. Cain's blasphemous struggle with the divine and sacred tyrant God will create and crumble empires, shape history, and cause a cosmic cataclysm.
The Lord now said to Moses, "Send out men to explore the land of Canaan, and the land I am giving to the Israelites. Send one leader from each of the 12 ancestral tribes." So Moses did as the Lord commanded. He sent out 12 men, all tribal leaders of Israel, from their camp in the wilderness of Paran. Moses gave the men these instructions and sent them out to explore the land. "Go north through Negev, into the hill country, see what the land is like, and find out whether the people living there are strong or weak, few or many. See what kind of land they live in. Is it good or is it bad? Do their towns have walls, or do they live unprotected like open camps? Is the soil fertile or poor? Are there many trees? Do your best to bring back samples of crops you see." So they went up and explored the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob, near Lebo Hamath. Going north, they passed through the Negev and arrived at Hebron, where Ahiman, Shishai, and Talmai, all descendants of Anak, lived. When they came to the valley of Eshol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes so large it took 2 of them to carry it on a pole between them. They also brought back samples of pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshol because it was the cluster of grapes that the Israeli men cut there. The Israelite men cut there. After exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruits that they had taken from the land. This was their report to Moses. "We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces, but the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley." But Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. "Let us go at once and take this land," he said. "We can certainly conquer it." But the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. "We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are." So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites. "The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw there were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers." And that is what they thought too.
The Abercast. Occult. History. Conspiracy. Violence.
All right, I forgot to mention that cold open was Numbers, chapter 13. Numbers, chapter 13, 1 through 33. I am your home slice, John Towers. This is the Abercast. The Abercast is the official podcast of Stigmata Studios. We're an indie comic book company. I don't know if you heard of us. Last week we talked about my early childhood obsession with Moby Dick. Oh, I'm still obsessed with Moby Dick. But I've been posting the pictures. I adapted it as a graphic novel when I was 7 years old. And I've been posting some pages of it. I mean, I think the whole thing is literally like, I want to say it's like 20-something pages. I've been posting the pages that I have to explain the least on my Instagram account. So if you're wondering what a 7-year-old kid can follow and see through the 1956 Gregory Peck Moby Dick movie, you might like to go to my Instagram and check it out. I think it's hilarious. And, it's not really even that bad. I did this dramatic. I didn't realize it till I'm trying to figure out how to post it on Instagram. I did this dramatic reveal of, because in the first portion of the book and movie, Ahab's missing. He's hiding in his cabin on the Pequod and stuff. And when he actually comes out to talk. So my little 7-year-old brain did this thing where I had the front, the top half of them on one page, and then you turn the page and there's the bottom half of them highlighting his peg leg on the second page. And I'm like, look, man, I'm even revealing stuff. I'm 7 years old. I just turn the page. It's that, you're out on the road again. Turn the page. Here I am. Where's the sad saxophone? And a long and lonesome highway east of Omaha. All right, I'm going to stop that. I know. I love to sing. I'm not a good singer, but I do love to do it. So, okay, last week we talked about my childhood obsession with Moby Dick. And I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun last time. I'm having a lot of fun this time. I would like to also note that I recorded this already today, and all my equipment worked just fine. Everything worked just perfectly. I just got to the end, and I'm like, I didn't give it my all. So I'm fucking recording this again. I got it. I finally got an episode under an hour to do, legit, no tricks. And I'm like, fuck, man, I just didn't bring it. I gotta fucking bring it. So now I'm gonna overbring it And I'm overpromising, really, is what's going on. Support the show, guys. Rate and review the show. Pick up some books. The rate and the review of the show and spreading it by word of mouth are free. It doesn't cost you anything. However, we love it when you pick up books because that helps us pay for stuff. And also, it helps me mitigate the cost of not inking pages while I'm researching and recording. I do a lot of researching, and as I've already talked about, I do a lot of recording. So these are all times when I actually should be inking and penciling and writing. So, I mean, come on, just connect the dots. Let's go. It's a gigantic Ouroboros in the sky. It's a snake eating its own tail. It's the podcast is the jaws of the snake, and the tail is the comic book work that I should be doing at this time. But the thing is there's never any mystical payoff like in alchemy. It's just this fucking thing. It's just going to spin this way till I fucking die. So please, somebody, help me out. You're probably thinking, what was this first recording like? Anyways, y'all, the new book's out. It's called Revenge in a Saloon Called Hell. It's about a guy who figures out a way to get to hell and take revenge on a fallen archangel and a demon lord who he thinks ruined his life. And it's also an open love letter to spaghetti westerns. I love the book. I think it's great. I get some interaction from some characters that you don't get to see interactions with very much, so I love it. I really love the book. Then coming up next, this is part of this Rise of the Beast story. Coming up next, chapter 2 of the Rise of the Beast is called The Brass City, and this is what happens when you take a World War II era warbot and you drop them off in the middle of the desert to combat the war on terror. And there's some stuff that happens after that, but I haven't figured out how to work that into the pitch yet. The elevator pitch. So we're going to be talking this evening. Good evening, everybody. This sort of idea, it's not so much this story, but stories like this, like the Lovelock Caves or the Native American traditions of fighting giants that really influenced me and was the basis of a lot of the last graphic novel I did called The Ages. Because in The Ages, there's a lot of, giant fighting in it. But a lot of, as we get to the end of this episode, a lot of the stuff we're talking about, I just want to give credit to where credit's due. A lot of the stuff, a lot of the material we're talking about is from the research of this guy named L.A. Marzulli. He did a series of videos called The Watcher. He also does like a YouTube thing called Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural Report. Also, there's a component of George Norrie's Coast to Coast AM. I just want to make sure I'm transparent with this. Because you guys might already be tuned into that. I mean, they're everywhere. This video that I'm going to be talking about is kind of viral and stuff. So if you haven't seen it, wait till the end of the episode, then go watch it. But if you have seen it, then still listen. I mean, come on. I throw some salt and pepper. I spice this shit up, son. That's what I do. Okay. And all of this is tied into the Old Testament traditions of these giants and how they gotta fucking go. Giants are not to be tolerated, son. Wherever you see a giant, you got to fucking kill it. You know what I mean? Anyways, we're going to be doing shows on the Lovelock Caves, the Genesis Giants, and all that shit later. I just thought that this would be a great episode to get into the Halloween season. Okay, so I always talk about where these shows link up. So this show actually is going to be like weirdly, you're going to be like, what the fuck do you mean? It's actually going to be weirdly linked up to the 9/11 episodes here towards the beginning of the story. So what I want you to do, dear reader, first of all, I want to thank you. Dear reader, listener, if you're a listener, I hope you're a reader. If not, fucking bridge that gap. But, dear listener, what I would like to do is I would like to say thank you very much. Thank you for letting me into your ear holes for this hour and some odd whatever. It's 45 minutes or whatever it's going to take me to get through this evening. I do not take you listening. Me helping you pass your time is an awesome opportunity for me, and I super much appreciate it. So I would like to say thank you. And now what I want you to do, dear listener, is I want you to mix up your gin jihad. Do you know what that is? People think it's a drink recipe. It's not. It's not actually a drink recipe. It's a formula for a weapon of mass distraction. What you need to do is you need to find a mason jar. Dump some of that old shit out that's been in your basement forever. Or wash that jar out real good. Throw a whole ice cube tray of ice cubes in it. Then do you gotta cut a lemon and slice a lemon or lime, I guess. However, whenever I walked around I had a jihad at the last Cinema Wasteland, and everyone thought I had a pickle floating around in a jar of moonshine, which neither of those things make sense to me. I mean, having a moonshine in a jar makes sense, but having a pickle in there does not make sense. And then if you knew it was gin and there was a pickle in there, that does not make sense. Anyhow, mason jar, a whole tray of ice, slice of lemon, or a lime, I guess. Throw in it. It depends on if you're going to be around dipsticks or not that think you're drinking pickle water. 2 shots of gin, then fill the rest up with tonic water. Shake it up. I have a designated chopstick I use to mix my shit up. And there you go. You got a weapon of mass distraction right there for you. It's called the Gin Jihad. And you're welcome, everybody. You're welcome. I'm going to start posting pictures of my Gin Jihads. I'm going to hashtag Gin Jihads. So if you mix one up, do the same thing. Well, it'll be our thing. So mix it up. Mix up your Gin Jihad in your canteen. And then jump on your UH-60 Blackhawk, because tonight, dear listeners, I'm going to tell you the story of the Giant of Kandahar. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born unto them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in one man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on earth in these days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children into them. These were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. So you're like, what is that dirty shit you just read to me? And I'm saying that was Genesis 6, son. Whenever people talk about giants nowadays, they're everywhere, it's so in vogue. We throw the word around, the Nephilim word. And some people call them Nephilim. Nephilim sounds a little effeminate. I like Nephilim. The word Nephilim, the word is Nephilim. Because it's not so lilty. Like these guys, they were... Okay, all right. So people always talk about this little blurb that they find in Genesis 6. But folks rarely talk about the Book of Giants. It's an old apocryphal Jewish tradition. So apocryphal, let me just back up, because no one explains this. You listen to some of these podcasts and they're like, they just read the Genesis 6 parts out. They're like, it's the Nephilim, everybody, it's the Nephilim. Well, here, let me fucking like back this up and talk about it for a second. The Bible isn't just the Bible. The Council of Nicaea actually sat down and figured out which books are going to go in the Bible when they try to standardize everything. But before that, communities chose what was in their Bible and what was not in their Bible. This is where you get the Catholic Orange Bible. That's from Dune. I just totally threw that in there. But before, each community chose what their sacred texts were and what was not. This Council of Nicaea, they sat down and they were like, this is what our fucking Bible is going to be, son. And you can't go, if you go past this, you know how the church is. We're going to burn you at the stake. You're going to be a heretic. We're going to throw you off some cliffs. We're going to crucify you. We're going to make life real hard for you for a little bit before you fucking die. So what happened is, this is kind of like, think about like the George Lucas Star Wars canon, where remember it was like the Star Wars canon. Like George was like, okay, well, the movies are canon. And then he had something to do with the Droids cartoon in the 80s. And then he was like, okay, well, that cartoon is now in canon. And then when he did the prequels, he was like, okay, well, the Droids cartoon's out because it doesn't match what I'm doing with these movies. Which is silly because he had control over both the fucking things. So what happens with these things that aren't no longer canon is they become what's called the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha it's like an old Greek word, and what it means is texts from a dubious origin, or something like that. Not to be trusted, or something like this, right? However, the problem is that because of so many of these things were loved, especially, like we're going to talk about the Book of Enoch, who is super loved throughout the Middle Ages or whatever, there's fragments and pieces and parts and influences of it throughout the whole Bible. It's actually funny that it's not included in the actual text, but it's weird, bros. I mean, I'm saying it's weird. So we get into these Gnostic texts also. Like there's the Gnostic texts that were found in Nag Hammadi. There's a lot of this stuff that people just thought were like lost to the world or whatever, but like you find them and they're actually things in the Bible that reference these texts, but we still are not like, these are part of the Bible. Like this is too weird. Like we're going to leave this out, or it's too dangerous or whatever. Or it's like, it's too inclusive, or like, woo-doo-doo, like whatever. I don't know. They really like Jews in this one. We're just going to back off of it a little bit. But, also there's a ton of these, Jewish traditions, Jewish oral traditions. Ginsburg, went and he collected a ton of Jewish myths, Jewish mythologies that were all just passed down by oral traditions. He actually wrapped it up into a book with many volumes called the Legends of the Jews. So if you want to know about like stone golems and this kind of stuff, and like if you want to also hear about like tetragrammatrons, and you want to hear about you want to hear some crazy archangel stories, hook up with that shit. It's Ginsburg, Legends of the Jews. He spent a lot of his life just wandering around, recording down stories of these old Jewish people's legends and stuff. You want to hear about You want to hear some crazy shit about Metatron and Sandalphon? Yeah, go there. I'm telling you, I read them all. This is what I base my comic books on, people. Okay, where am I at? Okay, so there's this old Jewish tradition called the Book of Giants, and it's apocryphal. And also, like I mentioned already, that my favorite book of the Apocrypha is the Book of Enoch. So if you want to hear some wild angel tales, son, go grab yourself a copy of the Book of Enoch and fucking go with me. All of these books, well, not all of them, but a lot of these books, especially this Book of the Giants and especially the Book of Enoch, they set out to flesh out the story of Genesis 6. And they actually really get into it. So here's some more. This is Enoch chapter 6. I need to lube. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. The angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said unto one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and begat us children. And Semjaziah, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to this deed, and I alone shall have to pay for the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it, that they were in 200 who descended in the days of Jared to the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bounded themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. Chapter 7. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go unto them, and defile themselves within them. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots. And they made them acquainted with plants, and they became pregnant, and bare great giants, whose heights were 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusations against the lawless ones. So, since I'm talking about these stories only to lend context to the episode, I will summarize for our needs. Because we will be talking, again, we'll be talking about the Watchers, the Nephilim, Enoch. It's not the Nephilim, it's the Nephilim. Enoch, giants, and more in depth in future episodes. So to summarize for our purposes, angels come down. 1. Angels come down and fuck Earth girls. 2. Birthed giants. 3. Angels teach humans all kind of stuff, like building weapons, metallurgy, beautification of the eyes, astrology, astronomy, math, the sciences, etc. Giants go crazy and fuck everything up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. God punishes angels. They lock them up under Mount Hermon. Semjaziah, their leader, is suspended upside down between neither heaven nor earth. Now you're like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means, son. I'm just telling you what the legend says is this dude he's tied up and he's suspended halfway between the heaven and the earth. So in my brain, he's in a geosynchronous orbit above Mount Hermon, upside down, floating in near space. There's I think there might be some Freemason imagery about this Semjaziah being upside down, suspended. I know that in Rennes Chateau, it's that famous thing. Like, you've all seen that Tom Hanks movie. You know what I'm talking about. The Holy Blood, Holy Grail play. You know what the fuck I'm talking about. There's actually a bas relief or like a sculpture of Semjaziah hanging upside down, like between heaven and earth. I always equate it with the Major Arcana card, the Hanging Man. He's hanging upside down. There's also a lot of other stuff with the Hanging Man card, specifically how his leg falls, his one folded leg falls behind his outstretched leg where he's tied to. However, I don't think we talked about tarot cards yet on this podcast. I mean, this is something we're going to get into a lot. We're getting into it a lot. As long as you keep listening, bros, I'll keep babbling at you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Semenzia, the being suspended thing, is a subset of 5. It's like 5.5. So 6, God flushes it. The presence of all the Nephilim corrupted everything. 7, and of course, God fucks it all up because he's like, look, Noah, you are pure in all of your generations. Everything else in this world is fucked. You know, you take all the animals. However, all the animals are fucked too. I mean, maybe there's like Noah. These other animals are like Noah versions of the other animals, because the Book of Enoch states that they defiled, or they started corrupting the fish and the birds and the dog. So this is like when you hear these ancient alien fuckers, and they're like, oh, there was the genetic experimentation on all they were genetically experimenting. No, they were running around fucking things. I keep losing my place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should just number these. 5, 6, 7. And of course he fucks it up. We know that he fucks it up because there are giants everywhere in the Bible after the flood. David and Goliath, the Canaanites, etc. And of course all these Jews now have to run around and kill all these Nephilims. So we can also bring this a little bit current. There's all these giant TV shows. There's Native American stories and traditions like the Lovelock Cave and stuff. Abraham Lincoln talked about giant bones. There's the whole thing about the Smithsonian repressing, destroying, and hiding giant bones. In my side yard, the Allegheny River is actually named after a tribe of giants that were here pre-Columbus. They were called the Allegheny. Could these giants have survived to modern times? So Afghan has had a dicey history since the bloodless coup d'etat in 1973 to the pullout of the Soviets in 1992. Then the country was divided up and ruled by warlords until 1994, when Mohammed Omar formed the Taliban movement. I can hear you guys all go like, what is this? Come on, I know you're fixated with terrorism, but what does this have to do with giants? Just hold on, son. Just listen. They sought to end the warlordism and let Sharia law sweep the land. The religion of peace to the rescue. The Taliban started defeating and conquering, consolidating parts of Afghanistan. Bin Laden moved Al-Qaeda to Jalalabad, Afghanistan in 1996, and under the Taliban, he set up recruitment centers, training camps, indoctrination/radicalization camps, supply and weapons depots, and then they started to coordinate with other jihadists around the world. See, here it is, everybody. I'm not adding this context about giants. I'm adding this context about why we have boots on the ground in Afghanistan. So listen up. An estimated 10 to 20,000 men and children passed through these facilities. Many would be sent to the Taliban and used in their war against the United Front, but some of them would be inducted into Al-Qaeda. Probably the best and or craziest ones would be kept for Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda. I think you all see where this is going. In 2001, September 11, it happened. 9/11/2001 happened. That's probably a better way to say it. The intelligence, CIA, whatever, we thought bin Laden was hiding in a cave somewhere under the Taliban's protection. Remember W was like, hold on. W demanded that the Taliban hand him over and kick al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan. They ultimately refused. Remember, this is when W gave his speech, and he's like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to smoke them out. Which might have been his finest hour. October 7th, 2001, the U.S. launched Operation Enduring Freedom, which went from 2001 to, I think, 2014, and then Obama named it something else after he fucked everything up. Because he's like, we're not going to be sending troops into Pakistan. He always had this weird way of, like, Afghanistan, I don't know. So let me back this up. October 7th, 2001, the U.S. launched Operation Enduring Freedom. It started as a series of airstrikes against Taliban and al-Qaeda targets. But of course, it led to boots on the ground. The Northern Alliance, aided by JSOC teams, which means Joint Special Operation Command. Hold on. My fat fingers can't turn things. Including Green Berets from the 5th Special Forces Group, 160th Special Operations Aviations Regiment, and the Air Force Combat Controllers took control of most of northern Afghanistan and took Kabul on November 13th, 2001. Kandahar fell in December. And the Taliban then went from defending territory to this. What am I going to say next? Everyone that's listened to enough of my military history episodes will know. I just work on a series of algorithms. I actually don't even exist. If you know my idiom, you just know what I'm going to say next. Let me rephrase. Let me go back. Kandahar fell in December. The Kandahar fell in December. The Taliban then went from defending territory to blop, blop, blop. Insurgency tactics. That is exactly what Sun Tzu would tell them to do. By 2002, U.S. Special Forces, the 101st Airborne Division, and the 10th Mountain Division, and some Marines were all in country. Why were they in country? They were fighting the insurgency. Okay, so here we go. 2002, Kandahar, Afghanistan. A Special Forces squad gets briefed. Their mission is to go out on patrol in a specific area, a remote area. A squad has broken communications in this area the day before, and this first squad was considered missing. They had no idea what had happened to the missing squad. They knew it had to be something because these guys were professionals, and they wouldn't just not check in on the radio or complete their mission. It would be weird if they got ambushed, because if they did get into a gunfight, they would call in a contact report, which is like, how many bad guys are there? Where are the bad guys? What kind of guns do the bad guys have? Also, they could have or would have called in for some sort of close air support if they would have gotten pinned down or if the enemy were dug in. However, in this case, communications just stopped. It's like if they were just walking, in the Afghani mountains and just disappeared. They just got swooped up. They They had no idea what they were in for, what they were looking for, what happened to their comrades. The squad's geared up. They had M4s, which are basically like little tiny M16s. They've been on TV enough. You guys all know what they look like. They had 308s and 50 cal Barretts. They flew in, and they flew in, and they were fuck. I'm losing my train of thought. They were put in, and they walked 4 kilometers towards the first squad's last check-in point. So when you say, like, you walk 4 clicks, do you, like, I'm not sure if you guys understand what that is. So, you know, it depends on, like, how elite or, like, how wild of technology these guys had. But, like, here's the way that this is the way that it's done. It's, you have a guy, your point guy. Actually, any guy who's worth his salt knows what his pace count is. So what it is, you mark out, like, 5 or 10 meters on a surface, and you walk it, and you figure out what your pace count is from, like, 0.0 to 10 meters. And then you do your math, and you figure out how many steps it takes you to get to a click. So you do that on, like, a marching surface. That's one thing. But then you go and you do it on, like, mountainous terrain or, like, uneven terrain to make it a little bit more, like, real life training. So you don't go, like, up a hill and down a hill and, like, figure it out that way. Because you work on the laws, you work on the law of averages. So it takes you this much to get up a hill, this much to get down a hill. By the time you cover your click, or how many ever paces it takes you to get up and over a ridge or whatever, it's going to even itself out. So you don't bog yourself down in all this information. But so you get onto some uneven earth, uneven ground, and you check out your pace count. Like, what it's going to take you to cover, like, 10 meters or something, and then you do your math. And then what you do is every click or so, you stop and you look at the map you're carrying, and you check out your terrain features or whatever. And then, the terrain features on the map, you know, they have, like, the different rings to show you, like, the mountains and stuff. And you look for the knuckles and the draws and the ridges and all this stuff, and you figure out where you are. So you could be off, like, a half click. You could be off a click or so, you know, but this is what it is. So when this guy's talking about, like, he gets helicoptered in and he moves 4 clicks, like, that's what he means. You know, you don't just go, like, okay, I'm going to walk 4 clicks, and you just get there. Like, there's more to it than that. And I'm actually, like, just bogging down the episode, just explaining it, but I just want to explain it. Like, I just want to explain. So 4 clicks in, they find this goat path. And the guy starts talking about, like, hey, you know, it's pretty nice goat path. So what they do is, instead of moving in so also when you patrol, like, there's different variations of formations that you move in. A wedge is a classic one, a column, whatever. So if you're moving down a goat path, that's what you're doing. You're moving in a column. That means you space more out apart, in case there's an IED or a booby trap or just a stray, you know, explosive, or someone can throw a grenade to ambush you or whatever. You string yourself out a little bit more when you're moving in a column, rather than if you're moving in a tactical wedge. Like, if you're moving in a wedge, you got the guy in front. He's like, you know, in all these fucking movies where it's like, I'm point man. That's really all that he means. He's just the guy in the point of the fucking wedge. And he's also the guy that's usually doing the count, which is unfair because he's actually got a lot of other things going on. But, okay, so they're moving along, and they come into a view of a cave opening. And strewn before the mouth of this cave is unidentified bone matter. So this guy's, he's explaining this. And he's like, there's not much in the way of big, large animals up here, but these bones are, they look kind of big. And then as he's looking at it, he sees also something that is identifiable among the bones at the mouth of the cave. And it was a smashed piece of U.S. Army issued radio equipment. The scent of decay or death or both was in the air. The soldiers first thought the missing squad could have been ambushed by the enemy? Question mark. I don't know. By an animal? I don't know. I don't know what kind of animal is big enough to smash a whole squad and their radio equipment before they could call in a situational report. Or it could have been anything. So they're up in this hill in Afghanistan. They're on a mountain in Afghanistan. There's not cover. There is not concealment. So what they do is they just find ground and they form a perimeter in case of an ambush. You know, they form a perimeter and their leaders are trying to figure out what to make of this discovery of like this broken piece of radio trash or whatever that they find. They figure that it's the part of the commo equipment from the squad from yesterday that went missing. Soon, a bellowing comes from the cave. A 15-foot scarlet red-haired giant emerges. He has a shield in one hand and an enormous pike or spear in the other. And it moves incredibly fast. The soldiers freeze in terror or in disbelief. The red-haired giant lunges out with his spear. And these guys are frozen. I mean, they don't know what the fuck's going on. They're walking, all of a sudden, next thing they know, a fucking giant's wandering out of this fucking cave, yelling at them. One of the soldiers, whose name was Dan, opens up fire. And the other soldiers are snapped back to reality. Or of the reality of the situation. And their training starts kicking in. Dan's rounds seem ineffective against the giant. They're bouncing off of him. They're bouncing off of his shield. And the giant's just advancing with this pike that he has. The squad starts laying down suppressive fire at the monster. And he skewers Dan. He jams his pike right through him. And he hoists Dan up in the air. Blood showering from the soldier down onto the giant. As the giant's opening his mouth, there's two rows of teeth. And somewhere, one of the soldiers yells, "Shoot him in the face!" He yells, "Shoot him in the face!" Because of the rocky terrain, a large helicopter hovered above the soldiers as they strapped the dead giant into cargo netting. The soldiers noticed that the dead giant had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each feet. And what they noticed particularly easily was he smelled like death, a consistency of a skunk with like undertones of death, I guess. I'm not sure how that works. And as that copter flew off with the dead Nephilim, the smaller UH-60 landed and the squad and their fallen comrade Dan loaded up. When they got back to base, everyone wanted to know what was going on. People have heard things already, what had happened, and they were wondering what was true or not. When the soldiers sat down, their leaders filled out an after-action report, which is basically an after-actions report as you fill that out anytime. Anytime you go out onto a patrol, you fill out an after-actions report, and that's basically like every step of what happened. And this is like when like people like Joe is like, oh, I think my pace count was a little off. I want to recalculate that. Or Ben was like, I don't know, like, I don't know. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you would figure out, like, in an after actions report. Like, oh, he had his gun faced the wrong way at this point or something. Like, you just figure, it's just all this fine-tuning stuff. It's all just a way of, like, reporting up everything. Like, you report up everything, and then you get to keep what you need to get to become better. You know what I'm saying? So, they go on to say that they had to sign a non-disclosure form, and these soldiers would never see the giant again. However, years later, on George Norrie's radio program, Coast to Coast AM, a pilot called who had a wild and crazy story. He tells a story of loading out a 15-foot giant with red hair, 6 fingers from each hand and 6 toes from each feet, and it stunk. He was loading out from a military base in Kandahar, and he was moving it to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio with a large Army cargo plane. He states without the pallet weight and straps, it weighed in at 1,100 pounds. So there's one more, quote, witness, unquote, in Afghanistan. In 2005, a special forces guy who was bumping around in the hills of Afghanistan looking for high-value targets here's a story about a squad of U.S. soldiers who killed a red-headed 15-foot giant in a cave. He remembers, or he was subsequently trained in the cave fighting training, where they taught 2 in the chest and 1 in the head. Instructors, though instructors told him to aim higher than a man's head. Do 2 in the chest and then aim higher than a man's head, and shoot 1 in the head. This guy couldn't figure out why he was being told to aim so high, breaking standard U.S. Army training protocol. This is anecdotal evidence about fighting giants in a cave. But if you're just here to listen to a creepy military army Halloween story, then this is where you should end. This is the best place for you to end the show. You want to end the show? This is the best place to end it. If you want to support the show, please rate and review. Please, pretty please, buy some comic books that help me pay for stuff and legitimize this in my brain instead of actually doing penciling and inking and storytelling. Sorry if I sounded jaded right there. Or just tell a friend. Tell a friend about the show. If you think you have a friend, if you like to hear about the Giant of Kandahar, and you think you have a friend that would like to hear about the Giant of Kandahar, tell them about the show. What are you waiting for? All right. Look me up on stigmatastudios.com. At the top of the page there, you can find all my social media. Find me. I'm actually, well, by the time this hits, I will have been done, but I did just recently publish via Instagram a bunch of pages that I did when I was 7 years old. I adapted Moby Dick. I didn't know what I was doing. I was 7 years old. I was just trying to draw Moby Dick as a comic book. the 1957 Gregory Peck movie, Moby Dick, as a comic book. So you can go back and look at all that stuff if you want. But you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on the Twitter. You can find me on the Instagrams. Right there. That's where you go. StigmataStudios.com. So if you just want the show to be over right now, you're glad to hear this awesome, creepy, military Halloween story, then this is where we should part ways, my friend. This is where it's over. So thank you very much. And the band today is called Fighting Giants, and we're going to listen to the song Last Licks. Thank you very much, and here we go. All right. Well, thank you for hanging out with me through that. I would love to very much thank Fighting Giants for their permission to play this song. They're awesome. You know, I play a lot of like hard stuff, but I'm a sucker for melodic things as well. And I actually feel like I'm going to open up to you guys in later episodes about this, but I think that this band is awesome. I found them just because their name were Fighting Giants, but I love them. I love them. So thank you guys very much. I'm sorry for burping on that. I'm trying, Justin Rimmel, I apologize. I'm trying to stop with the burping. I'm a child of Howard Stern, son. That's all. So I'm not going to get into this pilot story, and I'm not going to get into the shooter story, but what I am going to get into is I'm going to get into this talk about this third witness who was the special forces guy who's talking about cave fighting. I have a lot of problems with what this guy said, and I try not to make it relevant or whatever, like, poignant when I was reading what he was talking about. But like, okay, so let's start. Cave fighting training. I've never heard of cave fighting training. I've looked through state-of-the-art mountaineering manuals. I have Googled cave fighting training, and if you Google it, you know what you're going to find? The only stuff you're going to find for like the first 7 fucking things that you're going to find is the Giant of Kandahar. Until they talk about, like, later down, like, the 6th fucking thing they talk about is they talk about the bombing of cave systems. And I want to say, like, that's one of the things that we learned about in Vietnam. In Vietnam, they would find tunnel systems, and this was a combat engineer thing. They would find the littlest, tiniest, skinniest, scrawniest combat engineer, and they'd give you, like, here's a flashlight you can hold in your teeth, and here's a 9mm, and they'd smack their ass as they would push them into these holes so they could go down here and find out what's going on. We don't fight in caves. We don't fight in tunnels. We don't fight in caves anymore. We don't do that. You know what we do? There's no such thing as a tunnel rat anymore. You know what a tunnel rat is? A tunnel rat is one of these bunker busters that bust the bunkers underneath the bunker we just busted, like Justin Hammer says in the second Iron Man movie. Like, we don't fuck around with caves and bunkers anymore. It's impossible. We just melt them. We melt them all. So this guy's talking about cave fight training. Okay, so even if he was like part of this Black Ops secret space thing, he was in a secret space special forces program where they do fight in caves. They beam him in there to fight in caves. This is what he says. He talks about the standard, he talks about the standard military procedure: 2 in the chest and 1 in the face. So this guy's on like some kind of other thing. He's like a space cave fighter, and he's like, when we were in training, we shoot 2 in the chest and 1 in the face. Well, standard U.S. doctrine states that you just shoot center mass. You shoot center mass. I have an expert badge for my M16. I know, you just shoot center mass. That's what they do. That's what they teach you to do. But he starts talking about, like, they teach you to shoot 2. The Army teaches you to shoot 2 in the chest and 1 in the head. I don't think that's true. I actually have never heard of a Army unit. I'm not saying this guy didn't have like some kind of wild training guy that didn't say that, or this guy's like in some kind of weird unit that trains that. But I'm saying we don't fight in caves, and we don't do 2 shots to the chest and 1 to the face. This is what we do. This is what 2 shots. It's called the Mozambique drill. This is when you're in extreme close quarters, and that's why you're like, oh, yeah, like a cave. You're in extreme close quarters. If you have a 15-foot giant living in a cave, it's not extreme close quarters. You're just in an enclosed area. That is a difference. That's a difference. Also, okay, so here's another thing. The Mozambique drill is built for, IDPA shooting. It's built for in tactical pistol shooting. It's built for, if you think that I'm fucking with you, what you should do is you go get your DVD of John Wick out, put it in, and watch his assault on that club. This is what he does, is he walks in and he goes, pop, 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 pop. He might throw a karate chop in there, or like a knee, or like a creative, fucking elbow strike or something, but it's all this Mozambique drill. It's all 2 in the chest and 1 in the face, 2 in the chest and 1 in the face, 2 in the chest and 1 in the face. It's all in this pistol move. It's all in a pistol move. Army soldiers don't get drilled in pistol moves. They don't get drilled in pistol moves. And when they do, they're certainly not in cave fighting classes. You know what happens? Google search cave fighting training. The first fucking 6 or 7 things is gonna be about the giant of Kandahar. Literally, that's how ridiculous it is. Okay, so am I saying this thing didn't happen? I don't know. I don't want to say yes or no. I don't even give a fuck. I love the story so much, but you gotta wash this shit out. And L.A. Marzulli, or whatever this guy's name is, he doesn't help, because he just keeps adding extra bullshit on, because the guy will talk and then he'll add all this stuff on, and he'll be like, well, what he said was standard military training was 2 in the chest and 1 in the head. That's not true. That is not true. That's not standard military training. Or he goes, what they said is, they were assaulting this cave and they had AK-47s. That's not true. No Army unit is carrying AK-47s. What did Gunny Highway say? He shot at his troops with AK-47s, and he says, learn the sound of this weapon, because this is the weapon of your enemy. No Army guys carrying around AK-47s. I mean, you have elite dudes that are bah, 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 I'm carrying around AK-47, but no one that's seen giants are carrying around AK-47s. So, look, bro, this Mozambique drill is a police tactic. It's a close quarter combat tactic. It's a shooting tactic. It's tactical shooting challenge thing. And even when I did that, they never ever told me. I don't think they might have done it. Okay, so I'm going to walk that back a little bit. They might have done 2 in the chest and 1 in the head. No Army. I've never been on an Army range where they told me to do that. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, son. Just Google search the Mozambique drill. You'll fucking figure it out. And I'm sorry.
Vienna, 1683. Today is September 11th, 1683. The mighty army of the Ottoman Empire, led by the savage and radical terror troops of the Dar al-Harb, surround the walled city of Vienna and begin a siege to break the golden apple of Europe and kill, enslave, or convert all of its inhabitants. The valiant citizens stand against the tyrannical army with the steadfast leadership of Count Ernst Rudiger von Stromberg, the help of the ever-living rebel Cyrus the Dead Guy, and the hopes of the faraway King Jan Sobieski III and his army of flying hussars. The Vienna 1683 comic is available right now from Stigmata Studios at stigmatastudios.com and on indieplanet.us. The Non-Standard Squad, 1944. World War II. 3 weird American soldiers are on a search and rescue mission into the oldest and darkest regions of Europe. A cursed, ever-living warrior, Cyrus the Dead Guy. An experimental warbot, Sergeant Lane McCord. An all-red axe, mysterious rogue with a demon-possessed arm come face to face with an army of magically corrupted machine-obsessed elves, a magic hammer-wielding Norse Ubermensch, and a Nazi wizard who is a member of the ancient Dark Order of the Shining Hexagon. The Non-Standard Squad 1944 comic is available right now from Stigmata Studios at stigmatastudios.com and on indieplanet.us.
I'm fucking sorry. Hey, anyhow, we're going to listen to, I don't know, should we listen to the same thing? We'll listen to the same thing. These Fighting Giants, they're from Massachusetts, and they were awesome enough to let me play the song because I said, hey, it's thematically important to the episode. So Fighting Giants, everybody, this is Fighting Giants once again. This is Fighting Giants. I am John Towers. This has been the Abercast, and the song is called Last Licks. One more time. Okay, come on. Let's go. Let's go. There we go.
Just how they are. Can't focus.
Thank you, Fighting Giants, for letting me play your song. Thank you, everyone, if you lasted up till this long. And, fuck. I mean, we're getting close to the Halloween thing. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm paranoid. I'm freaking out. I don't know. But this is my, this is my anniversary. So I'm down here recording this instead of humping my wife right now. So I hope you guys are all 4 years. This is okay. So I gotta go. I gotta run. I've done this twice now. So I love you guys. Thank you. And hit me up. Booyah. Booyah tribe. Booyah tribe.